Hello everyone, and thank you for joining me on another vermicomposting update. I do hope that you are enjoying this extended weekend, and I will try to keep this video brief. I'm starting with my regular totes as usual, and this week for the bin that I'm just treating as I normally would with the shredded cardboard, I took a look at the castings and decided that it was time to add some additional material to this bin. Now that the humidity from the summer has moved in, I'm dealing with the bins being a lot wetter than they are over the winter and spring. So I'm adding dry shredded cardboard. I'm not wetting this down. I don't ever find that I really need to add any water to my regular totes. So I added the shredded cardboard to this, then gave it a feeding that was on the smaller side. I didn't want to add too much food that held a lot of water content, and right now I have a lot of cucumbers and squash which release a lot of water, so I'm limiting the size of the feeding in this bin. Once I add the grit and the bubble wrap, this bin is set up for the next week. Moving over to the second of my regular totes, this bin is wetter than its sister bin, and I do believe it has to do with the way that I am treating this one, which is like a trash can where I'm putting in large chunks of cardboard instead of shredded cardboard and putting in larger pieces of food if I have it. So I'm finding that these castings have much more water retention in them. So for this week, instead of putting the bubble wrap all across the top, I'm just going to put the bubble wrap in the middle section where the food has been put into for the pocket feeding. And then next week when I check it, I want to make sure that the castings aren't too dry on the opposite sides of it. If this works out, then I'll continue to do this during the summer months. Everything seems to be coming along well in the first of the VermiBag totes that I am working with now. There's nice healthy worms in there, and the castings are at a good consistency. It's not too dry and not too wet. I'm sure the worms probably prefer it to be a little bit more moisture in there, but I did want to add some more castings. Now, unlike the regular totes, which I've mentioned before, the VermiBag totes tend to be drier, but I'm choosing not to add any moisture just to see how that works. I'm adding food that has moisture into the shredded cardboard, and I'll see next week whether or not this works out for me. In the second VermiBag tote, this is the one that I've been rebuilding, and the castings have different consistencies all over, and I think it's because I did a mixture of some of the shredded cardboard, some of the larger pieces of cardboard from switching it over. So it's very interesting in how my castings are turning out in this bin. I'm shaking my hand off because I have a lot of small wisps and juvenile worms, which in itself is a very good thing. I was happy to see all the little worms that I had on my gloves, but I don't want to take them with me. I want to leave them in the bin, so I was making sure that my hands were clean. I added cardboard to this bin as well, and I'm just going to take the opportunity to mix everything all in really well. I'm gently doing this. It can appear that I'm being rough with the worms, but I take a really soft hand when I mix the castings in the bin. And again, taking the time to clean off my gloves because I don't want to take any friends with me from out of the VermiBag tote, and then feeding the bin up as usual, taking extra care to inspect my gloves afterward, and this bin is set up for the next week. My last and final, which is my flow-through system, my VermiBag Mini, the beetles came back this week. Oddly enough, though, they only seem to be on the lid and on the bubble wrap. As I went through the castings, I didn't see them, so I just put the diatomaceous earth and neem cake and grit on top, and then waited a couple minutes, and then took the bubble wrap away so that they didn't go back into the VermiBag. I am probably going to be fighting them all summer long, which I have to go back and check my videos and see. But as I mixed up the material, I noticed that I didn't see them as much in any of the food, and there wasn't a lot of food particles left behind. So maybe it was from eggs that hatched previously. Now what I'm doing, I am going to restart my breeder bin, and I do want to take the time to get the worms from all of my different bins. So that's why I'm using a bait tray this week when I'm feeding this bin, because I will be collecting worms, and I want to start with like 250 worms when I restart my breeder bin. So each bin I'm going to take a collection of worms out of, but I want to have a more accurate count of the worms that I take. And that's it, guys. That's the update for the week. If you enjoy the content, please like and subscribe. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Until next week.